Learning in our block Gemara. Today's block is Daf Ches Amud Aleph. We're up to the Gemara on top of the page. Amamar. We learned before that Beis Hill says Min Hamaisa. We learned that Beis Hill says the Mishnah talks about that you're not allowed to use Maisa money to discharge your obligations. But you can use Maisa money if it's not an obligation. You can use Maisa money for that. So we said, for example, the carbon oilers haria, which you have to bring on Yom Tov. That's what we think right now. And we discussed that the Chalamoid has to be used ordinary money. But the carbon shlamim, that is, the shalmei simcha, that you can use Maisa money for. You don't have to bring it. You have any meat that's good enough. And then we spoke about Yom Tov itself. Beis Shammai says on Yom Tov itself you have to bring from Chulin, and Beis Hillel says you can bring from Maisa. So we're asking over here, Beis Hillel says Min HaMaisa. On Yom Tov itself, you bring from Maisa. Asking why? Dover shebechoivu. You have to bring it. B'chol dover shebechoivu eidabo element achulin. We're talking about the Karma Chagigah. You have to bring the Karma Chagigah on Yom Tov. So it's an obligation. Hakan Beis Hillel says that you can use Maisa money for it. So Ula came along and answered, Amar Ula, and then we're going to have two Amoraim discussing what Ula meant. Amar Ula b'teifel. It's talking about when Beis Hillel says you can use Maisa money for Chagigah, he meant by mixing it together with your own money, your ordinary money. You can mix the two together. Now we're going to have an argument how exactly that works. Chizkiah says, Treiflin behema lebehema. Chizkiah says what you do is, if let's say you need more than one animal, so what you do is the first animal that for example, you have many people there who need to eat. So what you do is, and one animal is insufficient. So the first animal you use only chulin money. So you fulfill your liability of bringing it from your carbon chagigah, and then the rest you bring for your Maisa money. You can do that. And even though the second carbon is also called a chagigah, since you've fulfilled your liability or your obligation of a chagigah with the first animal, that's good enough. So that's how you mix. You're mixing animals. And Rabbi Yochanan says, no. You can't do that with animals. What you do is you mix the money, and you have some of the money is chulun money and some is Maisa money. Now, according to Chizkiah, it's better to mix the animals. At least you have one animal that's entirely done correctly. You use chulun money for it. And the next animal can be entirely Maisa. Rabbi Yochanan says no. It's better to mix the money, so at least because he says in Chizkiah's way, the second animal is entirely Maisa money. And the second animal is also part of your chagigah because you need a couple of animals. You have a lot of members in your family, you need a couple of animals. So therefore, Rabbi Yochanan says it's better to mix the money. So every single bite that you eat is some chulin in it. And Tosfos here brings that, and that argument revolves around another argument. That is, are you allowed to split for chagigah? Can you split your animals and have two animals for chagigah, or should you better buy one larger animal? Chizkiah says you're allowed to split your animals. So since you're allowed to split your animals, it's better to have one full animal that's chulin money, and the rest is Maisa money. And according to Rabbi Yochanan, you're not allowed to split your animals, so therefore you mix the money together. Okay, now we're going to bring a brisa to support each opinion. Says the Gemara, Tanya Kavaz the Chizkiah, the brisa similar to Chizkiah, but Tanya Kavaz the brisa supporting Rabbi Yochanan. Tanya Kavaz the brisa supporting Rabbi Yochanan. It says in the pasuk, Misas and Shavuos, you should give your donation. That is the way they should bench you. So Misas, Melamba, the word Misas teaches you. We'll see later how we know that from the word Misas. Adam maybe so you have a liability, and that liability should be met min hachulin, from your own money, not encumbered money, not money that you're obligated to do something with it. Like Maisa Sheni, you have to bring with you to the Shalayim. Umenayin, how do you know she merotza le'aved ma'av? How do you know if you want to mix? You can mix. Now, mixing is referring to money. The word ma'arev is only for money that you're going to buy the animal with. You're mixing your money together. Because when it comes to, if you're going to follow Chizkiah's way, which is you buy two animals, one animal is out of chulin money, the other one out of Maisa, then it's not mixed. Each animal is independently recognize, well, this is a Maisa animal, this is a Chulin animal. The fact that you mix them all together, diluted them, mix them all together means you mix the money together, so you can't tell what's what. Comes to teach you, comes to teach you like Hashem bench you. It says, just like Hashem bench you. Now, what Hashem bench you is that, so what we have here is, on the one hand, it says misas, which means it has to be chul money. And then it says, what Hashem bench you, and when Hashem benches you, you take part of that money, you bring with you to Yerushalayim. So therefore, you can take from whatever Hashem bench you with, you can use Maisa money as well. So here we clearly see from here that you can mix the two, but we're talking about money, like Rabbi Yechon. Now, Tanya goes up to Chizkiyo. Wait a minute, Chizkiyo. The following, it says, misas, that you bring him your obligation from money that's unencumbered. Bishame says, the first day is from Chulin. The first day, which is Chagigah, it's an obligation, has to be from Chulin. And he doesn't believe in that you can mix together. The rest of Yom Tov, when you bring animals, it's not for Chagigah. The rest of Yom Tov, bring animals is for Simcha. And for Simcha, since you can meet your Simcha with any way, with any other kind of meat, like from a carbon, from kabbanas that you donated or whatever. So therefore, or we had before koyin with his carbon chatas. So therefore, that could be from your Maisa money. Comes to Beis and says, this is me our proof. Beis says, achila rishona min achulin. Beis says the first achila, the first animal that you eat is from chulin. The other animals for Chagigah could be mice. Clearly, Basil says you're bringing more than one animal. If you don't have enough money and you have a lot of consumers, so you make smaller animals. The first animal has been entirely made up of chulin money, but the other animals can be made up of mice money. Exactly what Chizkiah said. The rest of Pesach, when it's not a Chagigah, it's a question of Simcha. Then you can then definitely meet your obligations using mice money. The Yom Tov. My time alive. Gemara says, why on Yom Tov can't you? Why on Yom Tov can't you meet your even carbons? He says it, even the rest of Yom Tov. You can remember before we said that you can use Maisa money. We're talking about Maisa Sheni. Maisa Sheni is the 10% that you have to bring with you to the Shalayim, and there you change it into money, and now and there you convert that money, you buy animals and so on with it. But he says over here that when it comes to Maisa Behema is you have 10 animals and you put them in your pen and then they walk out through that portal there and then you strike the 10th one and you put a red mark on it saying this is Maisa Behema. That Maisa Behema is you can use that Maisa Behema as an animal that you're going to satisfy mitzvah simcha, but it has to be done only the rest of Pesach, not the first day of Pesach. I want to know, why can't you on the first day of Pesach, if you can use Maisa Sheni, why can't you use Maisa Behema in the first day of Pesach? Ask me beyond my time alive. Why can't you use Maisa? Why can't you use Maisa Behema? What Abasha said, only for the rabbis. We're concerned you're going to do something wrong, and what is that? Dilma osila asuri b'yamtiv. We are scared that you are going to you're in Yerushalayim and you need an animal for simcha. You say, no, look, I have to give Maisa Behema anyway. I'll do Maisa Behema right now. And on Yom Tov, you now do Maisa Behema. And why can't you do Maisa Behema Yom Tov? We actually asked for Yom Tov. You cannot give Maisa Behema Yom Tov mishum sikita, because we're scared you are going to take that thing and put red ink on the animal that is usher from the Torah. And that's why we don't want you to do Maisa Behema on Yom Tov, because it's scared it'll lead you to do something wrong. So the Rishonim on the place wants to know there's a prohibition of taking an animal and making it and sanctifying it or consecrating it on Yom Tov. Why do you have to tell me the reason is? Because you might make a red streak, why a red mark? Why even just say you're not allowed to consecrate an animal on Yom Tov? So the Taisa says the word Chagigah understands the difference as follows. You're taking an ordinary animal and you're creating something new on Yom Tov. You're making it holy, and that is forbidden from the rabbis at least. Over here by Maisa Behema, it's automatic. When you count 9 animals, the 10th animal that walks out that door, or that portal there in the pen, is automatically holy. We want you to say it, but it's automatic. And therefore, since you're not doing it, it's not considered as if you're consecrating it on Yom Tov. Therefore, we have to give another reason why you shouldn't do it, is because it's scared you might make a red mark. So that's why Maisa Behema cannot do on Yom Tov, only the rest of on Chalamoid. And okay, so the Gemara, now the word Misas, my master Misas Chulin, you said the word, both prices say the word Misas means ordinary Chulin, uncommon money. How do we know that? See, it says in the Megillah, which we yesterday with Purim Cotton, Achashverosh imposed a new tax on the land, and this is a tax of money that didn't belong to him, and he put a levy on it. So we see that the word mas means money that didn't belong to him, that he just decided to levy higher taxes. That's why misas means chulin, money that is unencumbered. Then it continues. It says, as far as carbon simcha is concerned, you can use any meat of a carbon. Let's say you have an obligation to bring a carbon shlamim, you can use that meat for your simcha. Or a kohen can use the meat of the chatas, or the chazed, or the breast and the shank bone from the shlamim that he takes from a yid. He can use that as a simcha. That's what we learned. You can add anything for a simcha. The kanam come here learn out. You saw these animals that you promised to bring to the base of Mikdash, and Maisa Behema, you're allowed to bring your Maisa Behema Chalamoi. The Kohanim can fulfill their obligation. The Chatas Lasham, the meat that they obtained from the Israel in the sin offerings, the guilt offerings of Chayin, the firstborn Chazay V'Sheik or the Chazay Sheik. The same applies to birds and to a mincha, to a flower offering. It says in the pasuk, the samachta, you should be happy. And the word chagecha we're going to focus on. Chagecha sounds like carbon chagigah. That misha chagigah ba behem, you can only use, the only way you can derive simcha is from something that you can make a chagigah out of. And what can you make a carbon chagigah out of? Only from animals. You cannot use a bird or a carbon mincha flower offering, because it says in the pasuk, don't leave the fats overnight, and the fats around the stomach is only applicable by an animal. So the poskim say from here, we learn out, when it comes to a simcha, when it comes to a seudah, you can only do it with meat. And therefore, I remember seeing a Sfas Emes, I didn't see it this time around, there's so many, but when it comes to a bris, for example, he says, you can only use, or a wedding, only use meat. You're not yetzer with poultry, you're not yet, because poultry, as it says right here, is not v'samachta b'chagecha. Because the next one of Ashi says, v'samachta nafka. Don't focus on the word chagecha, focus on the word v'samachta, simcha. The only time you have real simcha joy is when Dav Ches on the base on top of the page. The only time that you have real joy is if you're eating meat. Yotzu elush ein simcha. Poultry, fowl, and flower offerings don't give you that same kind of joy and pleasure as meat does. Rav Ashi, who says the focus on the word v'samachta, what does he do with the word b'chagecha? Hi, the more says who that word chagecha, like Rav Daniel Katina is what we had in more cotton that Rav Daniel, the son of Katina, said. How do you know how do you know marry someone? You know get married on Yom Tov for Chol Moed. Remember it says the word chagecha is you should rejoice with your Yom Tov and don't have other sources of joy. Not with your wife. So he uses the word chagecha to tell you don't get married then, and v'samach to tell you is meat. And according to the first opinion that we use chagecha to tell you that only what a carbon chagigah can be made out of meat and not fowl and poultry and all that, how does he know you're not going to get married? So then we have three other reasons. You're not allowed to mix two simchas together, and other reasons that we had why you can't get married on Chol Moed. So it's not an issue for him. Mishnah. There's different kinds of people. You have people who are wealthy in small families, wealthy in large families. You have people who are poor with small families and poor with large families. So each one has to bring the korbanos in a different way. We're talking about now about korban chagigah that everyone has to eat from. So somebody has many mouths to feed, but he can't really afford too many animals. So what he does is he maybe shlamim merubim. So he has a limited amount of money. When it comes to the carbon riyah, he brings only one small animal, the bare minimum, and the rest of the money he spends on the chagigah so that he has enough. And he brings a few animals, and therefore he can feed all the people he has to feed. Mechasim merubim. Somebody can please do so. Mechasim merubim. If somebody is well-to-do, but he has very few consumers to eat all that food. So then he spends his money, maybe oilis merubim, he brings a lot of carbon oilis, which gets totally burnt on the mizbeach, and he brings only a few carbon chagigah, or one carbon chagigah, and that's all he needs, because you're not allowed to leave anything behind. What about zev let's say he has only a few mouths to feed, doesn't have much money. Here we said the bare minimum is more kesef and shtei kesef. There we learned the bare minimum is that for one carbon you use a ma, and for the other carbon you use 2 coins. Chagigah 2, and for the rear ma. According to Silver. You're well-to-do, you're well-heeled, but you also have a lot of mouths to feed. Regarding this, it says, Ish kematnas yodoi, that each person, according to what Hashem gave him, you give as commensurate to your economic status. So you give both, a lot of oilers, a lot of carbon chagigas, and so on. Says the Gemara, you started off saying Shlami Merubi. You tell me a person doesn't have much money, so he could come as far as the oil is concerned and bring a minimum amount. As far as Shlami is going to bring a lot, but you just said he can't afford it. How's he going to bring a lot? Shlami Merubi, Mehechet Maise, where are you going to bring it from? How Leslie, you just told me he doesn't have money. Teufel, what he does is he mixes. He's allowed to use his mice money. So even somebody who's poor would have mice of sheni. Everybody had farms, and therefore he could take some of his mice money and use that the money that he had an obligation on and mix it together and buy the kabbanis. Well, maybe, and he brings par gadol. He brings a large animal. So in other words, what we're saying here is, we're following Rabbi Yochanan. You bring one animal, but you mix the money together. Not like Chizki that says you bring 2 animals, one of mice and one of chol, small animals. Rav Shesha then argues, Amru, don't we say that teiflin behema lebehema? Don't we say that you should mix the animals? Those have 2 animals, one animal out of the chulin money, the minimum of whatever it is, and then another animal out of Maisa. Says the Gemara, what exactly is Rav Shesha saying? Micah Amaleh, what exactly is Rav Shesha saying? Is it? Do you think he's telling him Amru teiflin behema behema? Is he saying that we should follow Chizkiah, that we only mix animals, and we don't mix money together? Then Velema, let him tell him outright. Don't give him an idea. Tell him what he said is wrong. He should negate the idea that Rav Chizda said. He should say, you tell him to mix money. I'm telling you, you're not allowed to mix money. Ain't teifli mois l'mois. No, it's like Chizki, you're not allowed to mix money. Let Rav Shesha be more crystal clear as to what he's trying to say. This is what Rav Shesha is saying. Hari Amru, it says, af teifli behema lebehema. What Rav Shesha is basically saying is that why do you have to give him only one avenue and tell him that he has to mix his money? Give him a choice. Tell him he can either mix his money or mix his animals. Says you give him a choice. You're saying you have 2 options. Who says that? Chizkiah says you can only have 2 animals. One animal you use your ordinary money. The other animal you use your Maisa money. And according to Rabbi Yochanan, you can only mix the money together. You cannot buy 2 animals. Comes Rav Shesha says you give him a choice. Come on, who is he following? It seems the like Chizkiah, like Rabbi Yochanan, he's following either one. If you're going to tell me Amorayu the plea, Rav Shesha says I'm worried about Rabbi Yochanan and Chizkiah. He says 2 Amorayu are arguing, but Mastitla plea. You brought me 2 brises there. Those brises are not arguing. Each brise is giving you a recommendation. One of them is telling you about money, and one of them is telling you about the animals. Says the Gemara. In other words, the brises definitely are arguing because one brise says that if that you could, that how do you know you can mix money together holds that the only method is mixing money. But the other brisa, who says that the first eating is chulin and the rest is whatever you want, maybe the brisa holds you have a choice. You could either mix the money or mix the animal. And the Shesha says, I don't agree with either. I hope I get the second brisa. Maybe. But it can't be, because Vaktani doesn't the second brisa say achila rishonim min achulin, that the very first consumers, it sounds like the very first, right now we're interpreting achila rishonim means the first animal. The first animal should be from chulin. The rest of the animals you can use maisa money. So it seems clearly that the second brisa says the only method is to mix animals. So no one holds like Rav Shesha says you have an option either mixing in maisa money with your regular money or mixing the animal. My achila rishonim says you thought achila rishonim means the first animal. That's not what it means at all. You know what it means? It means shir demei achila rishonim min achulin. What it means is that there's a minimum of the value of the Chagigah is you should have in that first animal that amount of money that is a minimum that you need to satisfy your obligation should be a chulin money. But the animal itself, you can have part of the animal should be the chulin money, and part of the animal, the 2 more kesef is chulin money. and let's say the animal costs 5 more kesef, the other 3 more cost is your Maisa money. But you need to have in the animal a certain amount of chulin money. That's what he means, chil rishayna. But not that the entire animal has to be. So in other words, the second price, the whole you have a choice. So Rav Sheshes is the third opinion. Sorry?
Can I ask, how could it be one animal when the Chagigah you eat and the Re'iyah is an oila, has to be burnt?
Yeah, but we're talking about within the Chagigah itself. Within the Chagigah, you have to eat, and let's say you have 25 people that have to eat, you need a larger animal or 2 animals, 2 small animals. That's what we mean by Chagigah. We're saying by Chagigah, you can bring as many animals as you want for the Chagigah, as long as you nominate them, that they all, I will soon see them more in a minute, but as long as you nominate them all to be your current Chagigah. Oila, you're right, only one animal, oila. Yesterday we had an argument if you, every time you come in the first day, whether you have to bring another oila zriya, or if you're allowed to bring another oila zriya or not. But Chagigah, you can bring as many animals as you want and nominate them all to be Chagigahs, because they have to be consumed by all the members of the family. And if you have your large family and you're the grandfather paying for everybody, you need quite, I know, maybe a couple. So
you're not really mixing. You're not really mixing as one animal.
No, so you have 2 choices. Let's say you can't afford it using only your own money. So you're going to have to use some of your Maisa money. What's the best way to do it? To buy 2 animals, 1 animal with your chulin money and 1 animal with your Maisa money, which is what Chizkiah said. Or the best thing is put all the money together, in 1 box. And with all that money, that mixed money, you buy yourself, whatever, as many animals as you need. Came along Rav Sheshes and said, you have an option. You can actually do both. Either one is good enough. And he interprets that this second price is actually saying that either one is good enough. You can mix, as long as you have some chulin money in there, and the chulin money should be enough to cover the obligation of what you need to buy a Chagigah. Omar Ula says, he goes, look, right here, you will set aside 10 animals for your korban Chagigah. This is what Ula said in English Lakish. He could have chomesh b'yom tov rishon. Let's say you only had enough time. We'll see exactly what happened there. To bring the 5 animals the first day Yom Tov. Is chayzer u'makriv chomesh Yom Tov sheni. You could bring the other 5 Chagigah. Now Chagigah, you're supposed to bring the first day. If you didn't bring the first day, you have catch up the rest of Yom Tov. Here you brought some the first day, but you nominated more than just some. You nominated 10. You only managed to bring 5 the first day. You can bring the balance the rest of Yom Tov. Now we learn the Gemara like Rashi because Rabbeinu Chanan learns differently. So you can bring it into Chalamoid. And now the question, what's the issue? Why should it be an issue? Because it could be, it looks like you brought Chagigah the first day, and now you're bringing Chagigah the second day. And we have a concept, you're not allowed to add to mitzvahs, about Tosef. It looks like you're adding to the mitzvah. So he's saying here, but if you started the first day, you can continue the second day. Rabbi Yechon disagrees. He says, once you brought the first day, you cannot bring any more in the second day. Rabbi said that fact, not arguing. If let's say you set aside 10 animals, and you didn't say clearly these are Chagigah, you set aside 10 animals, then if you brought 5 the first day, you cannot bring any more of the balance. That's Rabbi Yechon, because it looks like you're doing the same mitzvah again. It's called Baal Tosef. But Kan b'mefarish, Shlaki is talking about a case where on the first day you said, look, I'm bringing 10 animals to the Beis HaMikdash for Chagigah, and you only brought 5, so you can bring the other remaining 5 on the other days because it's sort of a catch-up. Because you already set them aside for Chagigah. It doesn't look like Baal Tosef you're adding. Think about, hey, what actually happened? Let's say the first day you brought 10, but you only managed to bring up 5. There's so many people there, and therefore there's a line and a queue and everything else. Then so what's the problem? The fact that you didn't bring the remaining 5 the first day is not because you wanted to bring it another day. You had no choice. The lekish who's beyond, there was no time anymore. Why would you even consider it Baal Tosef? Why would anybody say that there's something wrong with that? So even though if Ella is talking about, we're talking now about the case of Stam, right? You said Stam, that you're not allowed to bring any more the rest of Yom Tov. If you set aside 10 animals, you're not allowed to bring any more afterwards, right? Because it looks like Baal Tosef. But the question is, if he brought all 10 within Beis HaMikdash and he only had time to bring 5, even if it's Stam, why is it a problem bringing the rest on the following day? Doesn't look like it looks like he intended to bring them all the first day, but just didn't work out. Why would you treat it as Baal Taisa? No, must be talking about the less Eichel. So the other possible reason is that he only brought 5 the first day is because he had no one to eat it. So he waited the rest the next day. So they finished eating the first animal. Now they'll eat the second animal because you're not allowed to leave over from a carbon. So again, he had no choice. The reason why he didn't bring the first day is because he didn't have enough consumers. So again, where's the Baal Taisa here? So we need it. The Ika, we're talking about a case, the Ika should be If you didn't nominate, you just brought these 10 animals with you. You did, and you had plenty of time still on the first day to bring the balance of 5. And the East and you had plenty of consumers, you could have eaten it, and you just didn't. Then Rabbi Yochanan says, don't bring it the following day. It looks like you decide to bring the same mitzvah again. That's called Baal Tesef. Like Rita Shmamina, so it comes out, Shiyudish, and it looks like you left it over. It looks like you intended to divide the kabbanas amongst 2 days, and that is Baal Tesef. The Torah says bring one Chagigah only on 1 day, and you bring it over 2 days. And deliberately, that's Baal Tesef. You had consumers, you had time. Says the Gemara, but in fact, that makes the most sense. He also Rabbi came along and he delineated more Rabbi Yechon. That Rabbi Yechon not arguing Shlokish, he's talking about a different case. The Shlokish who says that you could bring it, talking about a case where you nominated all of them to be Chagigah, and Rabbi Yechon is talking about a case he didn't nominate anything. You just brought 10 animals with you. So whatever you brought the first day is fine. The next day you can't do it because of Baal Tesef. And what was the scenario? He explains. He set aside 10 animals for Chagigah. He set aside 5 the first day. You can bring 5 the next day. So Rabbi Yechon clearly says that you can bring the other 5 the next day. Kasha Hadadi. Here Rabbi Yechon argues, like you said, you can no longer bring the Chagigahs on the following day. And here Rabbi Yechon says, the Rabbin says in Rabbi Yechon, you could. Elashmam, you have no choice but to learn. Kam bestam, kam nefarish. If you clearly nominated all 10 for Chagigah, you can bring them over 2 days. And if you didn't nominate them and you had time, you just didn't do it. It looks like you wanted to bring them over 2 days, and that is Baal Tesef. In fact, Itmanami learned. In fact, Rav Shem Rabbi said Rabbi Yechon clearer. Loishanu. When is all this talking about? Well, we say that only the first day you can bring it. Elosh legoma. You didn't finish bringing all your animals, then you can bring in the rest, and then the following day. Sorry, like Gomer. We'll soon see what it means. Avo Gomer, if you complete it, we'll soon see completed what? Chayzer and Makiv, you can continue. My Gomer, what do you mean Gomer? If you brought all the 10 animals that he set aside, then my Makiv, what do you mean? If he didn't finish, he can continue. Continue what? Ella Shalai Gomer Hayim means the day. If the day isn't over yet, then that's it. He only brings the first day, and you had plenty of time to bring more. You just didn't bother, then you cannot bring the balance the following day. It looks like you said it because it's too much stamp. You didn't specify what you're doing. It looks like you set it aside to make it over 2 days, it's straddled 2 days, and that is Baal Tesef. Avol Gomer Ayim, he set aside 10, didn't say nominate anything, but he set aside 10, and he just couldn't bring any more because the day suddenly was over and there's still 5 remaining. Chayzer and Makiv, you can continue because all you're doing is continuing the Chagigah as you started on the first day. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll continue tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem.